Right, we're ready.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you once again for joining us for another episode of African Women Empowerment Network. Today we are privileged to be joined by Dr. Penny Njoroge from Birmingham, Alabama. Today is a second episode. Dr. Penny joins us. Dr. Penny is born again and living on God's second chance by grace. She's located in Birmingham, Alabama. She's a mother of 6 precious children and 5 priceless grandchildren. She is a passionate mental health provider and advocate. She is on a mission to unmask and mental illness and demystify the stigma that comes along with it. She's a domestic violence survivor for 30 years and has survived 2 attempted suicide. Dr. Penny is a trained telehealth specialist, a life coach, a trained mediator, and a conflict resolution specialist. She's a fellow of the American Institute of Stress, an award-winning motivational speaker. She's also a recipient of many awards like Hospital Heroes Award, Birmingham Mayor's Hidden Heroes Award for Youth, mentoring a Kenya Head of State Commendation for Community Service. She's also a published author of Healing Hope for Your Grief and Bereavement. She's a locally traveled. She's a regular TV and radio presenter on various topics like domestic violence, alcohol, and substance abuse, marriage, and family. Dr. Penny is a board-certified death and grief therapist. She's the founder and owner of Angel Counseling Services in Birmingham, Alabama. She's also an ordained minister and board-certified chaplain. I am Catherine Jenga. I'm in UK. Let us know where you're joining us from, and thank you and welcome. Thank you, Dr. Penny, for joining us again for another episode. Karibu sana. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And yes, I was going to call you Dr. Catherine, and that is a prophecy that sooner than later you will also receive that word, because I know you're in college like I was, and I thank God for you. Yes, this morning, I'm grateful. We talked a lot about the pain and the struggles of domestic violence last week, but today we are talking about hope. What next? Where do we go from here? Are we tired of the abuse and everything? And yes, I did go through that for 30 years. But today, I want to share a crown that God has given us, because He's given me recently, because, and I share this not to brag, but to tell you that beside the life you are leading today, beside the pain you may be going through, God is still at work. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, to prosper you and never to hurt you, never to give you pain." And so I want to remind you that I don't know who you are, and I don't know what you are going through at the moment, or you know somebody who is going through domestic violence, but I want to tell you that there is hope. There is life after domestic violence. There is life after abuse. There is life after depression, like I did for 25 years as a result of domestic violence. There is life after being divorced. And so today I said we are going to talk about what next. Do we have hope? And I say there is hope, because I dressed in red today, and I tried to look as beautiful as I can be, because for years I thought, and I was told that I was the ugliest woman on earth. I was good for nothing. I was told, and I heard it over and over until my heart believed that I can never be anything. Away from my abusive husband, I could never become anything without him. And you are there, you are believing it. I'll start again what I said. I am not for divorce. I am not for separation. But when it gets to a point like it got for me, where your life is under threat, think about it. Lead your life to raise your children, to live your dreams, to become a role model for somebody. Because if there is anything I said last week that gave you hope, that God can do it again, I am praying that either you heal your marriage, or if it gets to a point where you are facing death, walk away. Do not harm anybody, but walk away. Last time we talked about turning our darkness into light. We cannot do that alone. Remember Moses telling the children, telling God when they were crossing the Red Sea, God, if you don't go with us, we cannot go. I confess I'm an ordained minister. I'm born again. And the only reason I'm alive today to talk about this is because there was a God every minute of my life when I was in that darkness. The other one, as I was going through all that adversity, my mother kept on reminding me, Wajire, you have what it takes, or Penny, you have what it takes to overcome this adversity. And so we talked about turning our adversity into advantage. What was the advantage for me? When I went through my divorce and everything, I realized I was still a mother. I was still my mother's child. I was still my siblings' older sister. I still had a part to play. My life was not just about me. And that is when I woke up to realize that as I was going through my own abuse, I was not the only person who was suffering. But when I was in it, I was focused about my own pain. I was angry. I felt inadequate. But when I came to this point in my life, because of my mother's constant rubbing it in me against what I had already been told, she rubbed it in me. Penny, you have what it takes to overcome this. So we are overcomers by nature, women especially. Because when you have children, you know you have to survive. When you finally realize that by being abused, my children are being abused, and I will say it again. My worst regret today over my domestic violence was what it did to my children. And I am speaking it louder and louder today for my sisters and even my brothers who are going through abuse, that your partners in being abused are your children. And I want us to give a serious thought to this, because if we do not do this, then we are leaving behind a generation that suffers eternally. We are leaving behind abusers. We are leaving behind daughters and daughters who cannot deal with what we are dealing with. Daughters who end up saying, if this is what marriage is all about, like I saw my mother being abused, I don't want to get married. We need to change the paradigm. Is marriage all about abuse? They are very beautiful marriages. Catherine, you can say that with me.
Yeah.
I know there are marriages, even when I was going through my marriage, there are marriages that actually I haven't made. Beautiful, loving husbands and loving wives. And so it's not, marriage is not all about domestic violence, but it depends on who married you or who you are married to. And I want to start by sharing a song that I sang to myself in weeping during the night I couldn't sleep. There's a song I have loved, and even to do when I feel low, because let me tell you something. This is a process that doesn't end overnight. It continues haunting you. You have to find a way of, chugging on like a train, chugging on and keeping on driving and keeping on taking a step at a time. So there's a song that for me kept on telling me there is hope, whispering hope. It goes, and I don't sing it because I'm a good singer, but I love the words and listen to the words more than my voice. It may be good, but I pray that the words will encourage you like they have encouraged me.
Okay.
Soft as the voice of an angel, breathing a lesson unheard. Hope is a gentle persuasion, whispers his comforting word. Wait till the darkness is over. Wait till the tempest is done. Hope for the sunshine tomorrow. After the shower is gone. Whispering hope, oh how welcome thy voice, making my you to allow God to bring a sense of hope in your life. It gets me emotional because I know there was a time I had no hope. I felt helpless. I felt useless. I felt totally inadequate for my children. And like I said, every time I think about this, I feel sad for my children. And I remember just a couple of days I was thanking God that God, you are so good. You have turned my pain into a praise that I can dare talk to my sisters and anybody who is listening who is going through abuse of different kinds. Don't quit on yourself because God is not done with you. And so that is why I'm praying, whispering hope. How welcome a voice that will make your heart in your sorrow rejoice, knowing that there is a tomorrow. You are alive. You have survived what you have survived because God has a plan for you. Isaiah 43:18 tells us, forget the past. We talked about the past. Today we are going to talk about forget the past. Look into the future. Dare to look beyond your pain and say, if I am alive today, there is something that God is doing. He says He will make a way where there is no way. He will make an oasis in your wilderness. He will bring new growth. He will bring healing. He will bring a new start for you. He did it for me. He's still processing me. He's still helping me. He's still using me even in my brokenness. He can do it for you. And that is what I want to tell my sisters. The other one we talked about is turning your fears and tears into physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual healing. That is where I want us to start today. Where do we go from here? We have hope. God has reminded us, I salvaged your life. I brought you this one because I have a plan for you. You are there, you are looking at it, and it is, well, God, do I even live until tomorrow? By the time I was getting to try suicide, it's because I thought, I am no longer a good mother. I'm no longer anybody. I was ashamed even because I said I had ignored my parents' advice. And so I thought, how can I even face them? And so I felt lost. I felt alone. I felt isolated. And remember, domestic abusers will isolate you. Remove you from your friends, remove you even from their own families because they don't want anybody to discover what you are going through. They intimidate you. The narcissist, there's a question you have asked about the narcissist. That narcissist who controls you totally, who makes sure that you will not say anything what he does not want heard out there. So when you're living with that kind of a person, you lose yourself totally. You become a shell. You become a robot. As a mother, you are cooking and cleaning and doing everything and serving everybody, but there is nothing inside of you. But I praise God today. Out of all that, when the Lord brought me across that river of pain where my sister is today, I want us all to learn to look back and say, there is a sister behind me, and I want to pull them. I want to be the shoulder that somebody can lean on. I want to be this person where I can tell you, please hang on me. I don't have money. I don't have a lot, but I have you. I'm not going to leave you sitting on the ashes. And if you have to sit on your ashes, I am sitting with you until you're bold enough, until you're strong enough to walk away. Catherine, I think that's a good place for us to start.
That's a good place for us to thank. Thank you very much, even for singing that song. And I must acknowledge that it was emotional for you. And thank you, Dr. Penny. It's not easy for you to have gone through the abuse and the many years of it, and to sit back and see what occurred, and even to come here and speak and talk to other ladies, and even to feel like to have the strength to come and talk to others. I appreciate that. I don't take it for granted. Yeah. So I just want to know if you're okay to continue.
Yes, we can. I'm good. I get emotional, but you know what? We say there is a reason why God gave us emotions. There's a reason why God gave us tears. And if you do not allow your emotions, that is what I did for years. And that is what brought me to depression. It brought me to being suicidal because I never cried. I never expressed my pain. I never talked about what I'm talking about today. Until I realized that, guess what? For 6.5 years after I left my marriage, I cried every night. I couldn't
Mm.
eat. I got
Yeah.
even more depressed.
Yeah.
And that is what the devil wants, so that he
Yeah.
can finish you completely, you put it in. I am
Yeah.
asking, stop bottling up your pain.
Yeah.
Look for somebody.
Yeah.
Look for somebody like Catherine you can trust. Look for somebody
Yeah.
like Dr. Penny who can identify with you.
Yeah.
And I have learned that we are told professionally, Catherine, don't share your stories. But you know what? I
Mm.
have learned it the other way around. I will share it with moderation so
Yeah.
that somebody else is feeling like, God, what is wrong with me? I hope when you
Mm.
hear that, Dr. Penny, doctor as I am, minister as I am, this is what God has created. But I was that broken woman. I was
Yeah.
that finished woman. This
Yeah.
is a byproduct of that pain. It's a byproduct
Mm.
of God's work in my life. I
Yeah.
am still being processed, and that's why sometimes I get where I have just been emotional.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to feel your pain,
Yeah.
call it
Yeah.
what it is, and then learn to move on with it. And yes, we can move forward and say, it is well. Today we are talking about, I just sang about whispering hope.
Yeah.
God is whispering hope to each one of us. It's
Yeah.
not over until the Lord says it is over.
Yeah.
And if you are alive today, it is not over. God is still at work in your life. And so let's keep moving. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Penny. Thank you. So I think my first question would be, we talked about abuse and we are moving on now, and we're also talking about is there hope in after abuse. But I would also like just for us to start with what are the signs that one is in an abusive relationship? Because sometimes some people may be in an abusive relationship, but they don't, they're not aware that they are, or they are doubting that they are, or the other person is making think that they're crazy ones. So maybe we can start with the signs of what signs would we say that one is in an abusive relationship?
Thank you. That is very critical because a lot of times, one, we may be in abusive relationships, but it's almost like we are saying, but it is normal when my husband is quarreling me every night.
Mm-hmm.
And like we talked about it in our culture where the man is dominant, they
Yeah.
have permission to control you however way they want. And remember, we talked about the dowry,
Yeah.
and we say some of these things we are instigating that, oh, the husband who is marrying your daughter has to do this and do that, and you give them the idea that they have bought your daughter. That
Mm-hmm.
is a wrong notion in our culture. But when we marry our daughters and our sons away, we are just asking for a token to show the seriousness of this person that, yes, I will take care of your daughter, but you are not giving them away to be abused. So, and so sometimes we get married, and then during the wedding day in our culture, you remember we are told, oh, women don't talk. You swallow what you get, and women are supposed. I don't know how best to explain it, but in Kikuyu we say, "Motumia negotumeria."
Yeah.
Women are supposed to swallow and never talk about what they are going through. And so the abuser and narcissists will take advantage of that because they know you have been cultured in such a way that you don't even share with your sister when you are
Yeah.
going through abuse,
Yeah.
or you don't even share with your best maid or your best man, your
Yeah.
best man. They are there because they should know what you are going through between the two of you. That's why you chose that best couple. But oftentimes we do not use them properly. We do not apply them in our marriages because we have been told, don't never talk about your stuff. And we are given this impression that when I come and tell you that, Catherine, I'm going through stuff, we are given the impression by society, oh, you're washing your dirty linen in public.
Yeah.
That's not always the case. Saying that this man is changing, he's abusing me. He slapped me yesterday. He shoved me, he pushed
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Those are telltale signs that you need to know and don't deny them, because when he slaps you today, tomorrow he'll box you. The next day he's going to push you on a wall.
Yeah.
So there are physical signs. He's pushing you, he's slapping you here, and if he doesn't slap you very hard, he does something. You will start by this. If you don't stop what you're doing, I'm going to do A, B, C, D. Those warnings.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a really loving person start intimidating you in front of your children.
Yeah.
Or you have guests, you are serving your guests, you put food on the table. And the first thing somebody tells you, oh, what kind of fresh food are you bringing for us? That's intimidation.
Yeah.
Those are signs of shaming. not appreciating anything. You have worked so hard for you. You are working. The women of today are working. They are going to school, like you, Catherine. You told me you are in school. You have children. You are raising a family. You have your ministry. Then you also are a wife. You double up. You multitask in all that. If you have a spouse who is abusive, and the same goes with some women, where the husband is working and providing for the family and doing everything, but instead of looking for the good in your spouse, you are looking for the negative. I have done everything else, but just because I dropped a paper on the floor before you walk in the house, that is what you are going to see. You don't see the clean house. You don't smell the good food that is smelling in the house. You don't notice that I am well dressed. You don't even notice I am groomed well. The first thing you tell me, and that I shared that, I don't know why it has come up again. I wrote about that incident in my first book. The desire of every family, every heart, a happy family. The desire of every heart, a happy family. That was my first book. And I remember sharing that the good wife, a good husband will do a lot of other good things, but a narcissist, an abuser, will ignore everything good you have done, highlight one small mistake, and that is what they are going to dwell with. Abuse you, degrade you, belittle you. They will belittle you. They're insulting you in front of your children and your family. They are watching the time every move you make. They do not appreciate it, but they are like a policeman or a policewoman around you. Those are telltale signs of abuse.
Okay. And I want to bring you back to how you said sometimes people don't say, because also I think the notion that we are brought up as very strong women, you can persevere a lot. So sometimes you find that people will also persevere, even though they're going through the domestic abuse, they will persevere. And there's in their self, or even people will tell them, you are a strong woman, vumilia, persevere. But in the meantime, like you said, even though you were there, you were serving your family, you were serving everybody else, inside you, there was nothing. There was nothing because you had been broken. What I wanted to add is last time when we talked about the signs, you also talked about walking on eggshells, where people live in a family or a home, but because the narcissist has made it so difficult for them, they live walking on eggshells. Their lives are walking on eggshells, and this is something that I've had in my time when I've worked with women who've gone through abuse. They say something like, "Oh, we used to walk on eggshells because we were afraid of upsetting this person," So anyway, Dr. Penny, the next question I have is, why do people abuse others? Why will an abuser start abusing his wife, or a woman abuse a man? Why do people abuse others?
When the abuse starts, we almost always look at the person who is being abused and blame them. But really, the problematic person is not the victim, but the victimizer. Why? Why do they control? Why do they abuse? They want to assert them. They have their own insecurities. A good example is when a man chooses to marry a woman who is more educated for his own ego. To say my wife is this and my wife, yes. A man he doesn't want anything to do with church. He's not born again. But guess what? He'll come to church, get born again in public. He does in his heart, he doesn't want it. But he has looked at that girl in church. He knows a neighborhood girl. She's born again. She's in the choir.
Yeah.
And even the women do the same thing. She's going to get into that choir. He's going to get born again in public and project that to entice the woman or the man of his choice. They will buy a car that he cannot even afford, because he has an insecurity in him. He wants to look like the other men of his age or his level. So he's going to do something, and sometimes I'll call it do something stupid for the sake of leveling himself and competing with his age mates or his friends. You do all kinds of things to control you. They have their own poor self-esteem, and so they are trying to make sure that you are always under them. He's here, you are here. To make sure that he controls you. You never have any to break you down.
Yeah.
to where he can control you. There is also, I say there's poor self-esteem.
Yeah.
They want to inflate their own ego. And he will do that by making you feel like you can never become anything. I live with those words. A product of Alliance Girls High School. An intelligent woman, because I'm not ashamed to say that is who God created me to be. But then you marry somebody who looks at you and says, I will tame you down. I will bring you to my level. And they will do anything, use his family, use his friends to bring you down, because he's always going to talk you down when you are in public. You will never do anything good. Because he's always looking for you to admire him. He's always looking for you to praise him, because that's how you build him up, and that's all he's concerned about. You, and worse still, when there has been this issue of I bought you, he will use you and put you where he will plug you where he wants and plug you when he wants. So a lot of times when people abuse others is their own insecurity, their own poor self-esteem, their own ego. They'll bring you down so that he can feel he's higher than you. For their own advantage. Yeah.
Wow. Which also brings us to the next question about narcissism in relationships. And also I want to talk about narcissism in relationships, not just romantic relationships. I know we have that further down, but even in perhaps in other relationships like friendships, or even you can find there's a narcissist person who has this narcissistic characteristic traits in their family. Yeah.
That's a good one. And yes, narcissists are in our places of work. They start off as the older brother, the older sister. I happen to be the older sister in a family of 10, so I know what it is. If you choose to take advantage of your younger siblings, you can control them to a point of destroying them if you do not have an element of love in you.
Yeah.
If you don't have an element of taking pride that my sisters and my brothers' advancement is my own blessing, you can use your own at your point of your number, your position in where you are born as a point of the intimidating others. So it starts in our families. And this person who is so hungry of being recognized becomes an abuser even in school, a school prefect. So you see the progression from where we are born to school to where we are working. This is the kind of boss who becomes you almost, it's almost like you have to shine his shoes, wipe his desk, just to make sure that constantly he's at the top of everybody.
Yeah.
For him, and this is where you find it draws down into places where for our young women to be promoted, they are caused to sleep with their bosses. An issue of abuse. Because this person has that ego of being on top of everybody, a control freak, a power. They're obsessed with power.
Power hungry.
Then bring it back home. Power hungry. Bring it back home. Can you imagine your husband telling you, he's coming home and saying, everybody calls me Mr. So and so at work. You need to start calling me Mr. Otieno, Mr. Njoroge, Mr. Kamau, you to your husband. On me going home, I am married. I'm a Dr. Penny. I go home and if today I was married, going home and telling my husband and my children to call me Dr. Penny. It's okay out there. But when I'm at home, I am a wife. I am a mother. I want to be a friend of my children. And even when they introduce me as Dr. Penny, it feels awkward. My children are my children. They are my level. They are my family. But then you find that is what is happening. And that's what I'm saying. It is a power hunger in these people. They are also allergic to criticism. They tell them that they have made a mistake. They are allergic to correction. They don't want to have any deficiencies. So if you dare point it out that they are lacking something, they are inadequate, they are vulnerable, they will kill you. So and then there is also a rage of anger. Anything small you say about them, a narcissist will never take anything as a positive. Because we are told to correct one another in love, but however loving you are to a narcissist, anything you say against them, anything that looks like is bringing them a notch downward, it is inacceptable. So narcissism, they are envious, they resent people. If they look at you and you're an inch better than they are, they will trim you down. They will do anything, whether it means breaking your leg. They will break your leg. So if you are living with a narcissist, you better be very careful. Not only are they going to hurt you economically to make sure that they control you, they will hurt you spiritually. You will not go to church at your will. That's what happened. I was in ministry, but they started controlling, where do I go to minister? When do I go to church? How do I dress when I'm going to church?
Yeah.
That is narcissism, always focusing on other people's weaknesses. They have nothing good to say about it. If you want to know a narcissist, they will never compliment anybody.
Yeah.
They are very good at picking mistakes. They are very good at picking other people's weaknesses. And they are always demanding, you didn't praise me enough.
Yeah.
I call me Mr., call me Dr. So-and-so, call me Mrs. So-and-so, because it's never me, not from the family level, but from my public image. Their public image is of the uttermost importance. You come next. And sometimes you are way below there.
Yeah.
When they advance alone.
Yeah.
When they grow alone. So I think I have touched a lot about them.
Yeah, I want to add on to what you said. When they grow alone, because there's a part you also say that they want you to build them, because in relationships we should be building each other. I'm building my husband, he's building me, I'm building the kids as well, and my friends around me, not just me being built. So a narcissist, like you said, they'll grow alone, because it's all about them. It's not together. It's not a team. It's all about them. Thank you, Dr. Penny. I just want to read some of the comments. I have my friend Nuru, who comments, as she's part of the admin. She's commenting, "You are a strong woman, Dr. Penny." At some point, she put crying emoji. I think she teared with you. She also says, "Valid, Dr. Penny." Thank you very much, Dr. Penny. As we continue, our audience, please send us your comments, your questions. Dr. Penny is here today with us. We are humbled and privileged to have her. And then I have Evelyn Kamau, who says, yes, in relationships, we should build each other, which is very important, because it's important for people to realize that a relationship, if you're in a relationship, even with your children, it's a team. We work as a team, you know. What's the vision for the family? Where do we want to go? Working as a team together, not one person growing and the rest catching up or trying to catch up. So I want to ask you, in your experience, what would you say were the things that triggered abuse in your relationship? Because I know some people would say, like you said, a paper on the floor will be one of the things that the perpetrator will notice, instead of how you are, how was your day, the food you've made, you look beautiful, Dr. Penny. So what were the things that triggered the abuse?
Let me add something about a narcissist before I forget. They will shamelessly exploit you. They also live in a world, or they're in a fantasy world. They do not face any reality, and if you dare tell them, but let's go down to the drawing board, you die alone, because they cannot go down to the drawing board lest you open up their can of worms. So and then let's go back to what you asked me about. Ask that question again.
What in your experience, what were the things that you said triggered the abuse? Did it just come out of anywhere, or just there's some things that perhaps happened that triggered that trigger perpetrators?
I'll go back to something I said during the last session. I say that I born again when I was at Alliance in Form 2, and so for me, my faith, my spirituality was a part of me, because I had grown up in the slums of Nairobi, very poor and very, very, with a lot of problems. And so my mother had taught us that the only way we are going to rise out of where we were, pushing up for school, struggling for food and struggling for clothing, selling bones and pieces of metal to be able to buy food, growing food around the river. So she taught us the only way we are going to rise above this is when we have God on our side.
Yeah.
And so when I got to a point of realizing that, true enough, my mother knows what she's saying, and I need Christ as my partner. And so I accepted Christ in my life. And so when I started dating, I made it very clear that the only thing you cannot take away from me is Christ. I want to keep my faith. That is my basis. That is my backbone.
Yeah.
And then I had also seen my mother being abused. I said my father abused my mother for a long time, and he only got born again at the age of 73. So you can imagine what we had gone through. And I talked about a narcissist who break your leg and break your hand. I saw my mother, how, my mother's leg broken, and I would end up taking her to Kenyatta Hospital for months. That is why I know some of these things. And so when I get married, I had said, don't ever touch me. And you know what? That's why I said, a man in courtship, when they want you, they will promise you moon and Jupiter.
Yeah.
They will promise you, they will do what they know you want. He came to church, he got born again, or rather he said, I am in church like you and I want this. But when we got married, church became a no, and no, I mean, of no importance to him. But I wanted to keep it up. We have children. I want to go to church with my children. I am ministry. I'm in ministry because I started ministering to disabled children at Dagoretti children.
Yeah.
The disabled children at Dagoretti home. So for me, it was a continuation. I come out of high school. I start working. I'm teaching Sunday school. I am working in. I was working at my church at St. Philip in the Buruburu, sorry, in Jericho. So I was in ministry slowly by slowly, and I wanted to develop that because I had that desire for a long, long time to go into full-time ministry like I am today, but it took the longest. So, but when we got married, going to church was not of importance to him. Here I am, I have young children, I want to take them to Sunday school, I want to do stuff with the ministry. Then when we got married, I was at All Saints Cathedral. I got involved to start the HIV/AIDS program. I was the initiator for that. I'm in the youth ministry, I'm in the women ministry, and women are asking me questions, and I almost like a counselor for them at a very early age, encouraging. I
Yeah.
have that sense of encouraging other people having gone through trouble. When I see somebody in trouble, when I see somebody sad, I reach out, or something draws them to me. So, and then he started resenting that. Why are you always talking to people? Isolation started.
Yeah.
Going to church became a problem. I had a car. He would take the car keys from me. Guess what? I would take a matatu with my children. So small things of belittling you. And so here I am, his children these are children of a big man. So the issue of me traveling to church in a matatu with his children was like an insult, like bringing him down. So that started raising issues. But I'm okay. I don't have a car, but I can move around because I really want to go to church. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not socializing.
Yeah.
I used to go to the women's ministry, to the women's sessions, fellowship. That stopped. I had started training as a counselor. That became a threat to him. So small things. When I want to advance. I did French. I actually took French all the way to advance and actually got a scholarship to go to Paris. But he said no. Yeah. Because you're not rising above him. So you're asking me for signs. My desire to advance.
Yeah.
My desire to be active in community service.
Yes.
He does not do it, so you cannot do it because he doesn't want to. It's almost like you're becoming unruly to him. And yet there's nothing. I'm not drinking, I'm not doing all the things that women do. And I'm not saying that those who drink are all bad women, but I wasn't doing anything that was criminal. But just because what I'm choosing to do is negative to him or different than what he likes, so small things. When you want to advance, whether it is in farming and he doesn't want farming, you are a bad girl. Whether it is in your dressing where you want to look decent and he feels like maybe by looking, and I have always been a very modestly dressed person. He would start controlling. This is what you are going to. I take you to deacon. I choose what you are wearing. Put yourself in my position. And I started asking myself, goodness, I'm good for nothing. And then those words are coming out as well. So there are many things I can say that were leading to that. And then of course I'm praying with my children. That's an issue. I can't go visit my parents because they'll tell me bad things. My friends cannot come to visit me because he is controlling anybody influencing me. And this is where society
Yeah.
needs to think.
Yeah.
This is where I'm encouraging our sisters. When you see somebody, here I am living in Kilimani, a posh place. I mean, I have a good job. I am driving a good car. That is what you are seeing out of me. And then I am suddenly not coming to fellowship. I'm coming to church haphazardly. One day I'm there, another day I'm there.
Yeah.
Guess what the translation was? Oh, she's become so big. She has money. She's not appearing. That is your quick interpretation of this. But you don't know that I'm being controlled. There's a woman around you. She's dressing well. She has an executive job. But you're not seeing her in charge. And you know she's born again. She really wants it. But when you miss, instead of calling her and asking, "Hi, Penny, I don't see you anymore. What's going on?" I may tell you, I might not tell you because I'm ashamed. I'm feeling controlled.
Yeah.
But when you call me and ask me that question, guess what? You gave me a chance to think, wait a minute, okay, I'm going through this, but somebody cared enough to ask me.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We jump into conclusions about our sisters, about our brothers. You do not know what is holding me down. And this man is orchestrating this, one, to break me from my friends,
To
to break you
isolate
from
you.
your friends,
Yeah.
to isolate
Yeah.
you, to
Yeah.
isolate you from fellowship with other human beings.
Yeah.
Because he feels good, he feels in total control.
Yeah.
So that is what really, and then economic control, he takes charge of every money. You're making money, but you cannot spend money even for your children unless he says yes. It will not be your choice. You buy what you want, but still pay for it and get control for it. Like I said, I want to go out to church. I'm not even going out anywhere, but the car keys have been taken. I end up in a matatu. You are messing up my name. I don't know whether I'm making sense to somebody listening out there. You are there, you are thinking you're all by yourself. Those are telltale signs that you need to start thinking. What next? What else is he planning? Because the moment they start economically destroying you, they are putting you in they are imprisoning you very, very skillfully. Because sooner than later you are going to be sick, you cannot go to a hospital. You are going to be needing something, you cannot do it. I wanted to go to advance my education. We had money, but it was not a priority because I was trying to rise above his own education level.
Right. Okay, Dr. Penny.
Let me say here that you know what, God is so good.
Yeah.
He fulfilled my dreams and brought me to a point. Now I can say this without crying and without any bitterness against him, because I learned later on he had his own issues. He had the wrong kind of people around him. People who had been educating him were telling him the wrong things and causing him to see me as an enemy rather than than a friend and a wife. And so I'm over with that. I forgave him. He's still the father of my children. I will say here. I have nothing against him, because to whom much is given, a lot more is expected. God has given me much. He has brought me where I am. That's all I needed. I still work with him as far as my children are concerned. We still help him. I cannot deny who he was. And so I have learned to move on.
Yeah. Wow, Dr. Penny, thank you, thank you. Some very deep stuff you're bringing in, and I'll be reading. We have questions and we have a few comments. Thank you so much. It's such a blessing to see someone. I mean, like the way you've healed so well, or are still healing, or working through it, and that you're able to come back and sit and speak to others, and also say, you know what, I forgave this person who hurt me, because. I know it takes a lot. I know it takes a lot to do that. I can imagine, I would say, it takes a lot. But to be able to say, sit and say, let me say, I forgave this person, because 30 years of abuse is not something small, it's a lot. And I can also, I thank God for healing you. So, As we continue, Dr. Penny, I would want to ask you, what about those who, I know we talked about this, but let's just talk about a bit more about those people who are so afraid of people's judgment that they'll, because somebody may be in a really, really bad abusive relationship where it could end in death, but they're so afraid of what the society will say, and they'll stay in an abusive relationship just to please others. I've heard people saying that the person was abusive even before they got married, but they went ahead and got married to this person because they did not want to disappoint others. But then, like you said, the consequences are quite, they're not just, they're not a joke, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it is true that we remain in these places. And I know when I left my marriage after 30 years, a lot of my friends did not believe it because, like I said, I covered it up. I was so ashamed. I wasn't telling people the truth about what I was going through. And even for my mother, who knew, because she had gone through it herself and she could tell that I was a very unhappy person. And
Yeah.
I know she cried a lot about that, but I never told her that the full picture. I never gave her the full picture of what I was going through because, one, I was kind of protecting my mother, thinking that this woman has already gone through her own issues.
Yeah.
She's now trying to heal. I don't want to bring her back into that valley. But you know what? My hiding took her exactly where I didn't want her to go.
Yeah.
My siblings also. My siblings looked at me as their provider because, like I said, I stopped at high school to help educate my siblings. So to them, it was when I was going through abuse, their provider, their friend, their sister is going through stuff. So you are doing it for everybody else, but not for you.
Yeah, that's
And
the
you don't
thing.
even think about it that way. Then come to the
Mm.
society, the people around us. Oh, she's married to a big man. She has a big house. If you walk into
Mm.
her house, it is furnished with material from London.
Mm.
She has everything. Look at the car she's driving. And so why everybody is envious of the external picture.
Yeah.
All they need is this girl is an alliance girl product. She came from the slums to the top,
Mm.
from rags to riches. So where can I even start telling them that I'm in those riches? I'm in this big house. I'm driving this car, but I'm weeping through the night. I don't enjoy any bit of it. I am comfortable getting into a matatu and going to work. And then at
Mm.
times the economic control would bring me to a point where I wake up in the morning, the car keys are taken, I have to walk from Kilimani to the community to work. You meet me on the road and you ask me, what's happening? Why are you walking? I'm exercising. Cover up. I told you I was a master cover up. And you are there, you are listening to me. What are you covering up? I feel like removing a wig and saying, this is who I am. I had all kind of masks. That's why I talk
Yeah.
about unmasking. The mask
Yeah.
was my car. The mask was my beautiful dressing. The mask
Mm.
was my executive job. The mask was my being a counselor, counseling other women
Mm.
who are going through stuff. But on the inside, I am shattered. I am broken. I'm bleeding. And so there are
Yeah.
many like me who stayed there. One, my children are in a good school, and maybe your children are in a good school also, but you do not have any reach to your money. You are earning the money, but you have no access to that money. So you're asking
Mm.
me, why would you continue staying on? This is the reason I want my children to finish school in a good school. That was
Yeah.
my notion then. I didn't realize that if he died, I would have to take it over and do it and do the right way. And God would enable me to do that. You are there, you are thinking the only way your
Mm.
children can go to school, the only way your children can get food is only if you are under this roof.
Yeah.
I realized later on that yes, they were going to those schools, they were eating the good food, they were dressing well. My house was full and nicely furnished, but we were not enjoying any of that. We were living dead lives. You are there, you are the same person. They intimidate you, they bully you, they control you so much, they intimidate even your sight to the extent
Mm.
that you forget that I am a whole person, I am complete in Christ, and if God has a work for me, He will make a way. I say
Yeah.
again, I started by Isaiah 48, 43, 18, where he says, forget your past. I am doing a new thing today. If it means going through a divorce, and I am not saying that divorce is the only way out, but if it becomes the only way out, then God will make a way. If it has to be, God will make a way. But we live in it because we are ashamed. The society stigmatizes you because I said, how can you leave your husband and you have everything everybody is envying you about? Who do you tell? Nobody will understand why when I left. I remember a family member asking, Penny has to be out of her mind. What do women want? What does she want out there? She has everything that we are all looking for, but they don't know that I have everything on the external materially, but I am a shell on the inside. I am crying. I am weeping. I am afraid for my life. I am afraid for my children. You have life threats. You are afraid of rejection. You are you're afraid of being blamed. You're afraid of being condemned because remember, the truth is that our African culture, even today, has not embraced the fact there will come a time when a woman or a man has to leave an abusive relationship to save their life. Not money. And many of us have walked out completely empty-handed because that is what I did. I walked away empty-handed, but my certificates and my children. Left everything. It was not fun. It was a very, very scary picture because I always say the day you leave your marriage is the hardest, is the riskiest. It is a matter of death because I remember the morning I left, I felt like I was standing on a cliff with my 2 children on one side and the other 2 children on this side. And I was pleading with God. God, when I tried suicide, I wanted it for me alone. But I don't want to die with my children. Please don't let me go down the cliff. Literally, I can draw that picture. I was scared. I have never in my life been so scared. I'm a very strong person. I can endure a lot. But when you touch my children, I am a mess. And so that morning, I remember telling God that the greatest fear for me was, what if I don't make it? What if I destroy my children? And today, as I look at the 4 of them, and now the 6 of them, I am not a millionaire. I would love to be a millionaire for once in my lifetime, but I am the greatest billionaire because of my children and now the grandchildren I have. And I'm not ashamed to say that. A few weeks ago, I was crowned. Let me give you this one just to make you happy. A few weeks ago, at the beginning of September, I was crowned as Miss Senior St. Clair County in Alabama.
Wow.
The beauty queen. And I was not crowned because of my beauty, but because of the story I'm sharing here.
Amen.
I was crowned as the first runner for Miss Senior Alabama. Again, for this story. You have a story. You have a life. I had resisted taking part in this pageant because it's beauty, the physical beauty for me is not very as critical as your inner beauty. But you have a story somewhere that can empower another woman, that can empower young women. Be careful where you're going. Be careful with your courtship. If I don't do anything with my life, let it be that story that people in foreign lands are looking at and saying, we want to hear that story. Yes, I am a beauty queen, not just because of this face, but because of what God has brought out of my pain.
Amen.
The transformation that God has brought out of me is what has earned me that crown. You have a crown on you. Catherine, you have a crown. There's a crown in my sister today who is still in an abused relationship. Allow God to save you, either in your marriage, heal your marriage, or get you wherever He wants to take you. There is a crown for every woman.
Amen. Amen. As we go to the next part, and congratulations on your beauty pageant win. I really admire that, especially the one. Well, both of them. I admire that. Let me just read the comments as we move to the next part, and we also have a question. I don't want to forget about that question from Vui. We have Joyce Washira who says she's listening to her big sister breaking the silence and unmasking. Rose K. Munene says, very encouraging, Dr. Penny. My sister Ruth says, very insightful. Then we have Nuru who says, say that again, Dr. Penny. People focus on material things. Rose also says, a master cover-up. And Nuru says, bless your heart, you had everything, but you are dead on the inside. I think after this, I need to call Nuru. She's been crying a lot in this session. And then she also says, own your crown, Dr. Penny. So Dr. Penny, thank you so much. Joyce has added another question. The beauty God has brought out of your journey radiates to the world. It's such a blessing, Dr. Penny. It's such a blessing. I told you when I listened to your story, I couldn't wait to write you and ask you and invite you over, because it's a blessing to see someone who has been through it and comes out of it and is blessing others. And also, so this brings me to that question where I have. So your experience of abuse for 30 years, you've survived 2 attempts, yet you managed to go back to university. People, listen to this. Dr. Penny went back to university at the age of 56. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
And you achieved a doctorate, where at that age of 56, many people would have given up, if I can say that respectfully, and even gone, but you've gone ahead and you didn't give up. You went back to university and you've achieved much more. Where would you say you got the strength from, and even the motivation, and even the thought that, you know what, I can do this, I'm going to try it?
Let me start by acknowledging my little sister Joyce. Sister Joyce is actually my real sister. And I want to acknowledge Nuru, I want to acknowledge all the other women who are waiting with me and celebrating with me, and my sisters. I do, even if I don't know you, I want you to know I celebrate you and I have a lot of hope in you. I believe in women, because when a woman rises, the family rises. When a woman rises, the children rise. And so thank you, Catherine, for giving me a chance to speak life into my sisters, to speak encouragement into my sisters' lives. Back to going back, when you asked me about going to school, remember I said that I attempted suicide twice. Once I wanted to run my car down the escarpment on Nakuru Way. The second time I actually attempted suicide properly with a complete plan that I really don't want to live, because if I have failed my children, where that is when I realized that my children were totally, raptured. They were really in a mess. They were hurting. They were broken, and I felt completely useless. That's when I believed, yeah, I've been called useless, and truly, if I cannot be a mother to my children, then I'm not worth living. That is what messed me up completely. But God, oh my goodness, but God, He gave me a chance. Not for me, but for those of you who are listening, you must have been the reason why God would keep me alive, so that one day I can encourage you, that I can empower you, that I can equip you to fight your own battles with God on your side. Then I remember when I woke up from my second attempt, after which I would spend the whole month at Nairobi Hospital, to a point where I would forget my children. Where I remember my son coming, and I didn't know them, both of them, my daughter and my son. And that was the hardest moment, especially for my son. He has told me over and over, I have never overcome the fact that you say you didn't know me. So after that 1 month in the hospital, when I rose up and realized that, you know what, and then my mother would remind me, you would not go anywhere, because these children needed a mother.
Yeah.
I woke up, and the day I woke up, I cannot even express the anger, the rage I had against God, because I remember telling God, you know exactly what has brought me to wanting to take my life. You know the whole details that I have never even told anybody. Why would you bring me back to life to continue suffering? Guess what? I heard that voice as loud as I can be, as it can be. I decided when you came into this life, I will decide when you live this life. I have work for you.
Wow.
Statements have defined my life after that.
Wow.
I have work for you.
I have work for you.
Don't kid you, those are the 3 statements I had. I have work for you. And so
Wow.
I remember I cried, and when I came to my senses, one, I remembered my mother's words that you have children to raise and to role model for. You have to be there for your children and be the role model for them to recover. As you recover, you have to help your children to recover. And so I woke up out of that bed after 1 month knowing I have to leave this marriage, because if I can die and leave my children, it is not worth it. If I can kill myself because somebody is threatening me, it's no longer relevant. It's no longer worth it. So I chose after that, 2 weeks after that, leaving the hospital, I walked out of that hospital empty-handed and everything. But I remember telling God, God, give me a promise that if you insist that I live, then please help me to make sure that as long as I live, my life is not going to be in vain.
Yeah.
Help me to be that, because I was missing. Other than my sister who I told a nugget here and there, Wambui, and she may be listening, the Mauras.
Mm.
Other than Wambui and my mother, I didn't tell anybody else what I was going through. And I because I was, all I knew is that everybody is going to judge me. They will condemn me. They will never
Yeah.
understand. And so
Yeah.
I get out of that hospital bed with a desire. God, help me. Find a way of equipping me to be the voice that I missed,
Yeah.
to be the encouragement that I missed,
Mm.
to be that voice that I am today for other women and for humanity, not just for women, not just for the girl child that I was, but to be
Yeah.
a voice for those who are marginalized,
Mm.
for a voice for the mentally ill, because that is who I was. And yes, I am a full-time mental health provider. I am a fellow of the American Institute of Stress. What does that tell
Mm.
you? I dug deep into what I promised God, and he helped me to dig deep, to work
Yeah.
with people who are stressed and depressed. I
Yeah.
also wanted to become an advocate, because there is no, even today, where we do have mental health providers in my country, and even here in America where I'm situated, but we do
Mm.
not have enough. Even when government does the funding, we have very little funding for mental illness.
Yeah.
Look at it today when we have COVID-19. Money is being dished out everywhere, but talk about mental illness, which is on the rise. Now we have
Yeah.
40% increase of mental illness and domestic violence. But when they
Mm.
go dividing money, there is very little money for the mentally ill. So my
Yeah.
desire to go to school was to get equipped, to get education, to become professional. I was
Mm.
already visiting people in the hospitals at Kenyatta Hospital and the spinal injury, where my sister and my daughter and I would go feeding patients who are disabled. Again, I don't know where that journey started from. Dagoretti Children's School for the Disabled. Now I come
Mm.
feeding the patients, and so it's been a journey with people who are marginalized, people who are hurting, people who are rejected. Because for years that is who I was. And
Yeah.
so that is
Yeah.
why when I went back to school at the age of 56, I decided I wanted to go for full time into counseling. I had already done counseling training with the Oasis and Kenya counseling professionals. But when I
Mm.
decided to go to school, I knew exactly what I wanted to become a professional, well educated counselor. That is why I chose counseling. I did a master's, I did a bachelor's in theology to back up my theological education again. But then I ventured into counseling for my master's, and I did my PhD in clinical psychology. I mean, clinical psychiatric counseling psychology,
Mm. Wow.
digging deep into it to become a psychologist, but focusing on psychiatry. And
Wow.
that is what I do. So I didn't choose it because it was a fancy. Many of us go into these careers because we think there is money. By the way, there is not enough money in what we do, because when I wake up knowing that I'm coming to do what I am doing, last night I did not sleep until 2 a.m. And here we are at 11, and I had already done another Zoom conference
Mm. This morning. Yeah.
this morning. But it is
Mm.
something, for me, it is because God has given me a second chance in life. I
Mm.
want to be able to
Yeah.
give it back to society. I want to be
Yeah.
able to be a role model to younger people who are
Yeah.
hurting. I want to be relevant. I'm constantly training myself, because I cannot come here and talk about the things that were happening 20 years ago. I
Yeah.
cannot come here and cancel with counseling that I did back in the 80s. I have constantly to keep myself abreast,
Mm.
because I do this as a passion. This for me, Catherine, is my legacy.
Amen.
You remember
Amen.
that you will never remember what I was wearing today, but I'm praying that you can remember a word I have said. Whoever is listening today, I am
Yes.
praying that there is a word I have said last week and today that can change your life.
Yeah.
I am a baton carrier. I'm praying for other people to
Yeah.
come behind me and train as counselors like you are doing. I'm so excited that that's what you are doing, and many
Mm.
others. I am encouraging women to train yourself for something, equip yourself for something so that when you speak, you can speak with authority out of your own experience, turning your pain into a message of hope. That's what I always pray, that God use my trials turn my trials into a testimony.
Yeah.
Turn my mess into a message of hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
And turn my being a victim into a victory for other people.
Wow. That's a really good message, Wow. Turn your mess into a message of hope and turn your victim into a victor for other people. I really appreciate it. Let me just read a few more comments and then we wrap up. But we have one question, Dr. Penny. I have Mr. John Jengangugi. That's my husband. He's always very supportive. He says, great topic. And he says, thank you, Dr. Penny. Then we have Joyce Washira, who said, thank you for doing the work God gave you. You paid the price. Your life is not in vain, which is what you've just said. And Nuru says mental health is real. And then she says, yes, turn your pain into purpose. I know she leaves that message as well. Turn your pain into purpose. So clearly, Dr. Penny, you've shown us that there is hope after abuse. We should arise and shine. Pray to God that He turns is it beautiful? He gives us beautiful ashes. And also, there is hope after abuse, because sometimes people find, if I leave, like you said, what will happen to me, my children? There is hope after abuse. And even if someone has gone through abuse, it's not the end of life. It's not the end of life. There's hope after abuse. So we have one question from Vui, who asked, is it possible that it's a long one, this one, that the definition of a strong woman is faulty, as it insinuates that to be considered strong is to accept and take abuse and keep going? Is this not wrong, sending a wrong message to our children when exposed to that?
I like that question, and especially for coming from my brother. I really appreciate him because it tells me he has been listening. And he's very right that when we were being raised, we were told you have to be strong. Kangumu. I have a brother who passed away. My brother Kemani used to tell me, Wanjiro Kangumu, be strong. And I wanted to impress my brother because he was my kid brother, almost like my firstborn. But and he said that because, like I said, he believed in me. He saw me as a strong woman. But being strong should not remove my permission to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And that's exactly what true. I have done here this morning and even the week before. I could have come here and looked like a Dr. Penny, a well-composed woman and everything. But why have I been vulnerable? I am being vulnerable to my sisters and even to my brother who notices that, to say it is okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
I'll say it again. It is okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
It is okay to allow my tears to flow. Does that make me any less strong?
No.
I am still strong because with God's help, I have moved from here to here.
Yeah.
And along the way, like my sister Joyce is saying, she knows the cost I have. When she's talking about the price I have paid, if there's anybody listening this morning, if Wambo is listening and Joyce, they are both Wambois, and these are the people who know the price I have paid. And I cannot forget my children. I'll name them because they mean the world for me. And these are the other people. Other than my siblings, it is Paul, Lawrence and Stella, Mombi, Eric and Kare. These are the people, and my siblings, these are the people who have kept on telling me, as late as when I was doing my PhD and I got to a point where I said, I can't go on. And my children told me, Mom, you've come so far to drop it. You have to finish. They became my cheerleaders. They did not tell me never to cry. They gave me permission to cry. I remember them telling me, if you want to take us to pause and then move on, but you cannot drop it. Allow the women who are feeling broken today. Don't tell them not to cry. Don't tell them always to be strong, because when you tell me to be strong all the time, you make me feel guilty. Don't shame me. Do not shame those who are crying. Do not shame those who are saying, I don't know whether I can make it until tomorrow, but please sit with them in their broken ashes and tell them, I know you are hurting. I know this is tough, but I believe in you. Instead of telling me not to be weak, Tell me you know there is an inner strength in me. And I appreciate my brother, because that is what is bringing up in all of us women. We cannot be like stones. I am a human being. I am a human being. I have my own brokenness. As a hospital chaplain, I'm also board certified as a hospital chaplain, hospice chaplain, a chaplain with the armed forces here in America. But I also know that I am a wounded healer. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says most of us are wounded healers, and so are you, Kathleen, because I know every one of us here. Nuru is doing it. She's expressing it for us. That's what he's saying. We are wounded in one way or another. But just because I'm wounded, because you're wounded does not make you any less successful.
Yeah.
It does not make you any less, it does not make your impact any less. But when you force people to behave like robots, to be strong because people are saying that they are strong, that is the life of a robot.
Yeah.
The life of a woman or a man with flesh and blood, you will hurt. Christ cried.
Yeah.
He cried when Lazarus died. We need to allow us to be real, to be human, total human beings who will hurt. To be total human being who will grieve. I have written a book on grief, Healing Hope for Your Grief and Bereavement. That book is not just about losing my mother and my brothers to death.
Yeah.
It's about the grief I felt, and the grief you are going to feel when you have broken relationships. It is grief and pain you are going to feel when you have terminal illness. It is grief you are going to feel when your parenting is challenged, when your children go into drugs, when they go into alcoholism and you know you never taught them. It is losing a job in this COVID, losing a business, you are going to grieve. Don't tell me to be strong when I cannot pay my mortgage and I look at my house being foreclosed. I can't be strong.
Yeah.
And so, I like what he says is very true. The image of a strong woman is not that woman who never cries. Is not that woman who never loses. It is not that man or woman who has never been broken. We are broken, but guess what? There is life after brokenness.
Yeah.
There is life after divorce. There is life after abuse, because that is what I am processing. I am still traveling, and I said I am a baton carrier. I'm a mantle carrier. I thank God, because there are many behind me who can, when I drop it, I pray that I'll never drop it on the floor, because Catherine, you are going to be there. My daughters and my sons will be there to carry it on. I carry a legacy that is worth carrying from generation to generation. I have granddaughters, I have grandsons, both biological and spiritual, who always say, when I grow up, I want to be like you.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they have never seen me weeping.
I would add on to that and say that we, as a culture, African culture, if I can speak for our Kenyan people, we don't acknowledge emotions. That's a sad part, and especially uncomfortable emotions. Those ones that we're not happy about. They are difficult for us to handle. So, for example, anger. If a child is angry, one of the questions that we ask them is, why would you be angry? But this child does need to process anger. Emotions like sadness, you want to cry, all those kind of emotions, we really, really don't acknowledge. We are happy to be happy, but we cannot be sad. You have to be strong. But then, like we said, we were created with him. We see him in his word. He was angry. That's an emotion. So if God was angry at some people in his book, why would we not acknowledge such emotions, And even sad, we see Jesus crying. But I'm even now speaking in Kikuyu. When a child cries, what we ask them is, why are you crying? I remember my mom used to say, bless her. What did she used to say to us? Or something like that, So some of those things that we don't acknowledge. And I grew up that way. And so I come and start also with my kids. I'm like, what's making you cry? By the end of the day, we need to recognize that we all human beings. We have emotions. And the more we are suppressing them, the more we end up, one day they will explode. It's it's going to be a pressure and they'll explode. So Dr. Penny, as we come to the end, I really appreciate your time. I really, really do appreciate your time. Thank you for sitting with us. And I have my sister here saying, Reverend Dr. Penny, Njoroge, you are such an inspiration. So even me, those are my closing words. You are such an inspiration. I want to thank the audience for watching. And you said you have one last thing that you'd like to do before we close. And of course, we'll invite you again to speak. Perhaps maybe next time we can talk about depression, because this is something that's not very well acknowledged in our community. So maybe we can do something about mental health. So as we close, Dr. Penny, over to you.
I want to thank you again, Catherine. I want to thank your husband as well for sitting with us as we talked about this. And, like I said, domestic violence is not purely about women. It's also about our brothers, as our sons, as men as a whole. And so let him also tell men, let our men come out and own up that I am being abused, because just as women are committing suicide out of being abused, as feeling helpless and closed in, most of our men, because our culture does not allow our men to admit that they are being abused, we have a lot more men who are hiding and going through stuff where they need help. And when a man says I'm being abused, we need to be fair and say that, yes, it is happening. And I said last week, because a lot of our women who are doing it are saying, I will never allow any man to do what my father did to my mom. So it's coming out from a very sad way of protecting themselves, and then they are going overboard with it. So I appreciate that he was there to hear us saying that we acknowledge our brothers, our sons are also being abused. And so we need to face that. That's another epidemic that is in the making. Remember, we have sons. We need to give them permission, just like we are giving ourselves. Men have every right to cry. Men have every right to express their emotions. Stop telling your sons and little brothers that men don't cry. They have emotions. They have tears. They were created just like you and me. So let's honor their emotions. Let's honor their outcry for help. And I want to say that if there comes a time, I don't want to forget this, if there comes a time when you feel that your life is threatened. While I say that I do not advocate for divorce and separation, I don't advocate for losing a life just so that you can stay in a marriage that is killing you and killing your children. I don't say you run away. Be sure that you have done everything possible to save your marriage. But if it gets to a point where you know that unless I walk away, my children are going to be motherless. My children are going to be fatherless. Or I'll end up jumping into an ocean with my children. Here in the US, we saw a mother with postpartum depression. Joyce is here. Postpartum depression. And there was also domestic violence going on. She had a baby 3 weeks old in an SUV, drove herself in Washington into the ocean.
Oh, no.
When people saw that, they ran, they helped them. But initially, before her sister spoke, everybody was blaming her. Why couldn't you commit suicide alone? Until her sister came out and said, my sister is deeply depressed, both depressed because of domestic violence, and then she has postpartum depression. That's a crisis in itself. And so before you judge anybody, ask yourself questions. Let's talk to people before they get there. If your life is under threat, please do something about it. Walk away. Let people talk, because they will talk about you. But if you die, it's your children who are going to be left suffering. You are the one who is dying slowly, like I was dying. I worried what are people going to say, but I suffered alone. I have had to go through my own consequences, the choices I made on my own with the family support. Remember, there is a God for you. If you're living in places like the US and where you are, Catherine, there are shelters. Find a way out. Start making arrangements. Do you have your documents? Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have a little money somewhere? Do you have your ID? Do you know where your passport is? Tell your children. Let your children be your confidants, because what you think they don't know, they already know, and they're hurting with it because of the secrecy.
That's true.
Those family secrets, especially with their children. I regret it. I never told them, but they ended up telling me, "Mommy, why did you think we didn't know what was going on? We were afraid of asking you because you are not coming out with it." But they knew it and they saw it. Equip your children.
Yeah.
If this happens, you know who to run to.
Yeah.
Tell your grandmother, tell your auntie, call the police. If he's choking me, call 911. Because that will happen, and because you have never told your children how to protect you or protect themselves.
Yeah.
I had a memory. I have a memory where my neighbor's wife, where my neighbor shot his wife in front of his children. And the chaplain that I ran into that house. I found her lying down dead, the children standing beside her frozen, and the husband standing on his wife. Yeah. So I know what I'm talking about. So is there anything you can do to prevent such a situation? There is.
Yeah.
The society around us, the community around us, don't just ignore people when they are crying. Don't call it. Don't say they are crying wolf. It's not always wolf. Some situations are real. I'll say this again to finish. Do not wait to go contribute $20,000 or 20,000 pounds to bury somebody who was crying for help. You ignored them. Now that they are dead, you are raising money to help them. I am asking us, let us preempt these situations. Let us listen around ourselves. Let us talk to people, and before they commit suicide, before they kill their families, is there something we can do? This is a societal responsibility. I'll leave it there because I know we are listening. We know what is happening around our communities. It is time we say it. Enough is enough of the suicides we have had. Enough is enough of the homicides. Enough is enough of our children going into drugs and alcohol because of what they see you going through.
Yeah.
Take care of the generations to come. The pain we are going through today has an impact of generations to come. So let's do what we can. Can we always change it? We may not change everything, but let's just change what we can. You and I, let's link our hands together. Don't only praying. I am a minister, we pray, but sometimes there is need for action.
Yeah. Even the Bible says faith without works is dead. We need actions, and not sometimes it's not just praying. We need to take that action. So I'll just close with Mr. Janga here says very powerful message, and we have quite a few men who watched today with Dr. Penny. My cousin David says, "Thank you, Mama." So thank you, our audience. Join us next time for another episode of African Women Empowerment Network, where we believe that we empower one woman, we empower a generation, we empower another woman, we empower the nation. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching. God bless you all.
Amen, amen. I'll close us with that song because it is love that lifted me up. It is God's love that lifted me up. It is God's love that will lift you up. And I want to say thank you so much for your support as I did this. Thank you so much. And yes, I am willing to come back and talk about depression and suicide. Those are topics we need to talk about as soon as we can because they are all around us. And so again, Catherine, I will not come back, but I'll say thank you so much to everybody and especially to you for making this possible. I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore, very deeply stained within, sinking to rise no more. But the master of the sea heard my despairing cry. From the waters lifted me, now safe am I. Love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me. Souls in danger look above, Jesus completely saved. He will lift you by his love out of the angry wave. He's the master of the sea. Below his below there. He, your Savior, wants to be saved today. Love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Love lifted you. Love lifted you. Love shall lift us all. Love lifts us all. Joyce Washira, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching us. Thank you. Join us next time. It's been a blessing. Thank you.